All right, it looks like the meeting is recording, so I will call the meeting to order and then ask Courtney to do roll.
Great. Vaughn Jones or Kirk Will. Like someone from DFPC is with us today. Amy Moyer, we just heard, is excused. John Ring.
Present.
Good morning, John. Commissioner Jody Shattuck McNally. Not with us. Brett Wilk.
It's me.
Hi, Brett. Katie McNovak.
Hello.
Good morning. And Commissioner Veronica Medina. It is not here yet. So we don't yet have enough for quorum, but we can still have a conversation.
Awesome. That sounds good. So basically we have two things that we wanted to discuss today. The first one is just kind of open-ended, but if anyone has any updates on the Colorado Forest Resilience Planning Guide, we were just thinking we could use a little bit of time to hear if anyone is using the guide, if you've seen other people using the guide, if there are opportunities coming up, just kind of keeping everyone in the loop. I will give an update of my own to kick us off, and I think a couple of you already know about this, but I'm hoping to launch a Colorado Forest Collaboratives Network newsletter segment featuring the Forest Resilience Planning Guide. So I know like Brett and Courtney, I think you've each put in a couple things. But if you see people using the guide, if you see like case studies that you're like, oh, cool, that kind of exemplifies this piece of the Forest Resilience Planning Guide or something like that, if you could send them my way, this is just kind of a way that I am trying to get the word out and kind of give people a tour of what's in there through my own work outside of the council. So does anyone else have updates about it?
I don't.
Yes. Yeah, I'm curious, Aaron, if you've heard anything from State Forest Service side, and I can give a couple updates, I guess.
I have not.
All right. Well, and Katie, I don't know if, so with the Forest Summit, a workshop with people there that maybe you could talk about or just get on people's radar. And I don't know, I think we've shared this before, but CFRI contracted with Laura Hickey and CDR Associates a couple months ago now to add support to help develop more materials, do trainings and workshops, and help make the guide more usable and continue that learning process of like, how are people using it? How can we make it better? So we do have some extra capacity and support to support the actual implementation of it. And that has resulted in, we had some things planned already. There was this Collaborative Conservation Institute that was convened through the Center for Collaborative Conservation that Katie works for. But it was with State Forest Service, the Center for Collaborative Conservation, CFRI, and CSU Extension. And this was actually in the works before State Forest Service was moving administratively to CSU Extension. And those workshops are focused around how to get Extension and State Forest Service folks to work better together in forestry and share information and resources. And we're using the guide kind of as a basis for how would those folks in the field engage in different ways. So there are a couple of those. I don't know if you've been involved in those trainings, Katie, but one or two have already happened and one or two more are on the books. And I've heard that they've been very well received, and more people also in places like CSU Extension now are familiar with the guide and referencing it, and reaching out a little bit more to CFRI folks of like, hey, can I do this or that, or questions about forestry and fire. So yeah, I think some good steps still, more familiarity It's kind of growing in that way outside of this group, Forest Health Council. But lots of people on the council are advocating for, like, this is a good framework we can all sort of work off of, a common operating picture. We also got invited to share it at the work group. I still am stumbling on their acronym a little bit. Wildfire Watershed Investment.
For Resilient Colorado. I
Right,
think that's right.
something like that. One of their webinar series, but then it got postponed. So
Yes, thank you. I forgot to add that one because it has been postponed, so it
Yeah.
flew my mind.
I think it'll come back. It wasn't canceled. But
Yes.
I think just the indication that people are finding it valuable and using it and asking for more resources, and people are using it themselves, which is good in sort of the design and how we're sharing it out. But I think there's also increasing demand for helping integrate it into different places. And I do want to shout out to a month or two ago, the State Forest Service put a lot of work into redoing the website that hosts the guide and put links to specific sections and things like that, and made it more bite-sized and accessible. So that, I think that's been really helpful too.
Cool, thank you. And building off of what you mentioned about the Colorado Forest Collaborative Summit, yeah, we are going to have a training at the summit that'll be based around the Forest Resilience Planning Guide, and that'll be an optional thing that people can add on that'll go pretty in depth. And then in addition to that, we're meeting with the planning team again today, but we're looking at having one of the main sessions at the main day of summit when everyone is there, and we're looking at doing some sort of a session around the Forest Resilience Planning Guide there too, whether it be like, yeah, an activity or something, but kind of using the guide as a basis for that too. So hopefully getting it out a lot through the Forest Collaborative Summit. I think at this point, it seems like a lot of people working in collaboratives are familiar with the guide, but maybe they haven't dove in yet. So that's kind of the next step, is like, all right, you know what this is. Let's see what it can do for your community.
Yeah, I think one thing Chaska Waiwaka on my team is leading, we engaged with Coalitions and Collaboratives, COCO, to see how it could integrate with their Community Navigators program. And then also we're looking for sort of like case studies, places for people to do some workshops and like more in-depth, how would you apply this? And ended up connecting with Two Rivers Collaborative out of Grand Junction and the watershed up of Grand Junction. So just kind of making some efforts to make sure that it is everyone around the state sort of sees this and is familiar with it and finds value in it. So that's still coming together. I don't know that it's finalized that it's going to happen there, but there's connections, just sharing there's connections kind of all over the place. It's I think truly people around the state and beyond the state kind of see it as a bigger framework.
Cool. Any other updates there that we're missing? It's good to see it moving forward. Well, if no one else, sorry, Brett, did you have anything else to add or no?
I think it's good to keep this on. I want to make sure, and I appreciate you hopping on, John. I think one other thing on the agenda is sort of like committee levers of influence for committees and sort of what we want to do with this committee moving forward, but make sure that this committee is connected to activities that are happening. Like I mentioned, we are working with Laura Hickey and some other folks at CDR on doing things, Katie's doing things, and so there's like actual momentum and things happening, but bringing it back to the Forest Health Council, I think, is important for both the guide and the council.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess I'll make a note in our when we have the full council meeting in August, we should be sure to give some of those glimpses to the full council too.
Yeah, and really, I think with the council continuing to see how it can be used to inform what we call those like resource allocator, the funders, agency leaders, to see how they can keep learning how to use it, because I haven't heard it. People are excited, but still, I think a little unsure, and haven't heard it invoked from that perspective as much.
Yeah, and I haven't gotten a chance to reconnect with the folks at work about the webinar that is going to be rescheduled, but I'm curious what their audience is going to be and if that's an opportunity to explore more of that resource allocators side of the guide. All right. Well, yeah, as Brett mentioned, the next thing on the agenda is to discuss levers of influence for this committee. So was everyone here on last month's call? Aaron was not, I don't think. And Courtney, you were not, but you watched it. I guess I'll just give a brief overview or a refresher of last month's discussion. So we had a really good discussion last month about the future of this committee and what that might look like. It actually started off with a possible idea to dissolve this committee. And then we got into a broader discussion about where we would like to see this committee move forward. So a couple of my key takeaways from the last meeting are the need to have bigger picture discussions with the full council in August, which we already have had a couple of big picture discussions with the full council at our last 2 quarterly meetings. But, you know, the need to continue those. Also seeing a need for the 2 committees to coordinate closely and kind of figure out like what are our ways to move forward on things together. But then the thing that we want to talk about today is trying to figure out what levers of influence this committee has before jumping to any conclusions about anything else. So one of the challenges that we've discussed several times in this committee and at the broader Forest Health Council meetings, trying to figure out like, what are we working toward in this committee? Are we making administrative recommendations to the state agencies? Are we pulling together groups that are working on stuff to connect the dots? Are we working on projects like the Forest Resilience Planning Guide? Maybe all of the above, maybe something new. So we just wanted to talk today, just have a discussion about what levers of influence this committee has, or what do we want to have? And that way we can kind of inform more discussions about what this committee might look like moving forward. Courtney, do you have anything you want to add to that, or anything else you want to set up? She may have stepped away. I'm not sure.
No, I'm
Oh,
here.
okay.
Sorry, I was on mute and my internet is so slow. I keep turning my video off to save bandwidth. But yeah, I think what you said, Katie, was just right. And I also think this could be a good moment to look at the statute to, again, understand the council's role. And I also think this list could transcend this committee. It could even be like levers of influence for committees, period. So like, what could this committee do? Or if there were to be other committees, like what are different actions that can be taken or avenues? So I'll pull up the statute real quick, and then we can also.
I actually have it. Well, I have a link to it. I don't know. Maybe you could share your. Another bit of context related to the statute. So I just wanted to pull up the purpose statement for the Leveraging Resources Committee, and it actually comes straight out of the Forest Health Council statute. So there's a list of like 10 or 11 things that the Forest Health Council is supposed to do, and one of those items actually is the purpose statement for the Leveraging Resources Committee. And it's kind of long, so I'll just paste that in the chat too. But that's a little bit of context as far as like our purpose as the Leveraging Resources Committee and where it comes from, which is out of the Senate Bill 21-237. So as far as the full council, one of the things out of the legislation is the Forest Health Council as a whole is a collaborative forum to advise the governor and General Assembly. And then it lists like all of the different things that we are supposed to do within that. So I guess that's just some setup.
Thanks for sharing this, Katie, and Courtney. Can you go back, just like the purpose of is to advise the governor and state legislature? I think that's what I keep trying to figure out of. That's our purpose as a council, and how do we want to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have that sentence or phrase?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. I put the phrase in the chat, collaborative forum to advise the governor and General Assembly. Courtney, maybe you could share.
I'm trying to share. My internet is so
Oh, no.
slow. It's like it's just everything is loading and spiraling. But my intention is to share. Yes.
Okay. In the meantime, I was just looking at it earlier. On page 3, if you're in the document, kind of near the bottom, it says council created. There is hereby created within the Division of Forestry in the Department of Natural Resources, the Colorado Forest Health Council, referred to as the council, to provide a collaborative forum to advise the governor and General Assembly on a broad range of issues, opportunities, and threats with regard to Colorado's forests. So that would be the overarching Forest Health Council mission or task. And then going on to page something.
I like the power and duties statement at the bottom of page 5.
Yes, that's what I was looking for. So bottom of page 5, the mission of the council is to improve forest health in Colorado through an integrated, science-based statewide approach focused on collaboration. It goes through a lot of people who are going to collaborate across all jurisdictional boundaries. And then it goes through the council shall engage in at least the following activities. And that's where number 6 is what was directly pulled from this legislation into the Leveraging Resources Committee. Like if you look at the top of all of our agendas, it says like the purpose of this committee is, and that is where that comes from.
So in terms of, advising the governor and General Assembly, I think one way that happens is the annual report that is shared with the governor and with legislators. And that's shared, I would say, like, via email, via our director of legislative affairs, but perhaps there's like something more to do with it. Like there's potentially maybe more ways that recommendations or advisory functions could be carried out. The educational breakfast for legislators seems like a great potential place to continue to engage with legislators. So that's something that like the committees could collaborate more on a little bit. I know it's hard to have too many messages at an event like that. Like I felt that we were really successful if we were able to tell someone that the council existed and that we had a report, let alone getting into the details of the recommendations or like to show them the 30-year vision. So I'm just thinking about like, what are the ways that can be achieved? And then I want to go down to page 5 and grab that section. Yeah, Brett, that you just put in. So I'm trying to grab all these things and stick them in the notes. There, we can look at them together. Howard.
I mean, in the power and duties, number 4 is monitoring trends related to forest ecosystem health. I mean, we have the forest tracker, so we're tracking treatments, but then the second part is that how they relate to climate change and advising on state level action. How do we dovetail the forest tracker into information that could help inform those decisions? That's a piece I think we could look into. And then number 5, I mean, we're kind of knee deep in that. Promotes synergy across forest-based collaboratives. That's already a piece of what we did with the guide. My fear is that, and not really the impression, but kind of like as the FHAC as a whole. I mean, if we're just going to try and push for legislation and stuff like that, that kind of limits my involvement. So that's why I like being on this piece where we're actually, and we've already accomplished, a couple things that I think are kind of high level hitting things. I can't be on that piece. So if this goes away, I don't know. I mean, other than having conversations about things, I don't really have any input to make any change. So as a federal partner, it'd be nice if we kept something like this group together, and maybe it changes into something a little different. That's fine. But I just can't be directly involved in the creation of legislation. So I don't want to be left out, I guess, is my point.
Yeah, I do not want you to be left out. You're
well, I mean, I can, speak the perspective, but I can't speak to the actual pushing for legislation. So
right. Yeah, no, and that was a really great point that you brought up last time. That was definitely one of my key takeaways, was how will any changes that we do or don't make impact the different members and federal friends and council members. So yeah. And I think the legislative committee is also having conversations. So we're kind of looking like outside of legislation, what else is there? So like, yeah, like if federal partners can't or don't want to participate in coming up with legislation, like what other things can we do? So forest tracker, yeah, all the things we've already been doing are good examples.
maybe an exercise we could do on the committee is have everybody review the document again, and then maybe put together a list of things that we could try and start or whatever, or at least ideas, like kind of like what I said, where that we have the forest tracker to track what we're doing, but it doesn't really get at the climate adaptation or any opportunities at state level. Like maybe that's something we can look into. I mean, I don't know, maybe if we all looked at it again and maybe just had a list of 3 to 5 things and came to the next meeting, we might be able to put a little list together of where we might want to go forward. I don't know. up just an idea.
Yeah, I wonder if we put a little more bounds on it and help me out. This is just off the top of my head of what I feel like this committee has talked about, had energy towards, worked towards, was forest resilience planning guide, helping people communicate amongst sort of the resource allocators, people on the ground, doing work more efficiently, forest tracker. And then also the other thing was sort of the leveraging resources. We had lots of conversations about sort of grant programs and funding, and keep circling around this idea of, does it make sense or does it not make sense to model things after like the WRI program in Utah, or is there a space to create something like that in Colorado, build on the Restore program we have here, where there's like reducing the letting people working in forestry focus a little bit more on forestry and less on sort of the grants and agreement side, somehow streamlining some of those things to better leverage resources, right? So yeah, I agree, John. I think putting it out there of like, here's our mission from the charter. Here's the things we have been working on. How do we build on them? And then I'm curious, and I actually meant to follow up, Courtney. I can't remember if I sent you an email yet or not, but I want to know who took all of the things from our climate adaptation workshop that we did at the full council last time and what we're going to do with that. And I would love if this group sort of like, if that was a part of that, but I don't know where that lives in the council.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have those giant sheets of notes, and all of people's feedback
Yeah, we put a lot
is
of work.
written up in a Google Doc. And so I think it would be a great thing if this, like, I don't have a grand scheme plan for those items. If there were to be the development of subject matter committees, that could be a great place to start. But if that's not where this energy is going, and that's not where the council is going, it could be a great thing for this committee to look at. There's so many great ideas on there. So I'd be happy to share that. It would be great just to bring it back up at the next council meeting period, but would love for this committee to take a look at it also first, if you all wanted to see it.
Yeah, I think I'll just share Courtney Peterson. There were lots of people who are keen making that happen, but Courtney Peterson at CSU was, and now she's on maternity leave. And so we've lost a lot of capacity to like keep moving it forward. So I would love to, rather than just bring it up at the next council meeting and say, what do we want to do? Have like some kind of synthesis or something to feedback all the energy that people put into that workshop. So
And
I don't
that's
know
what
if that's the committee, but
right.
John, we brought it up as far as like part of the powers and duties too. So
yeah, I can go back and find, the last bit of that workshop was kind of the culmination synthesis part of it. I can go back and look in the notes also to see if there was any big culminating, like thesis or theme that came out of it. Or are you saying, Brett, you would like this committee to do some of that before the next meeting?
yeah, I don't know. I don't know that we want to get into that on this meeting here and get too far out of this committee, but there was something that was already on my mind. John brought up sort of the powers and duties. What's the next step? And we haven't done too much on to mitigate and adapt to climate change kind of statement. But we got a really big start at our last full council meeting. And so it's like, how do we sustain some of that momentum and like take it somewhere?
Right.
Courtney, if you are interested, I don't know if anyone has done this yet, but I took pictures of all of those things, and my student employee transcribed all of the giant stickies, and I can send you that if you don't want to type everything up.
That would be incredible. We have some of them typed up, but I don't know if we have them all. And I was going to be doing a lot of back and forth. So if you definitely have them all typed up, that would probably save me some back and forth. That would be incredible.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so I thought at that last meeting as well, something that came out of there that I was a little concerned with is, yeah, we all picked that one, what was the one that we picked to work on? I forgot that piece, but the one that I was concerned about was like prioritization across the state of like areas we need to work on. And I know we can't like get to a thing where, everybody puts money into one spot to do that, because that's just not fair, county wise, municipality wise, and, everybody has different needs. But one thing, a program that we had in the BLM was called the Healthy Lands Initiative. And what that did is we piled all of the money. So it might have been like wildlife money, fuels money, forestry money, and we kind of concentrated it into one area. And an example would be like the Dolores River Partnership. I think they're now Rivers Edge West. We put a ton of money into that in that program. And because it was a focal area for us. And, and after years of doing that, we were able to get to that ecosystem to like a maintenance and monitoring state, right? So we're not actively doing projects. We might be going in and spraying a few weeds here and there, or cutting some tamarisks and treating them. But for the majority of the work, it's just maintenance and monitoring. And I don't know if we can get there with that. And WRI kind of gets there, but not really, because that's more of like a state level thing. But if there's somehow we can get to a place where we could maybe a focal area where if we have an opportunity for a bunch of different partners to put money in and get a piece of land, a huck or a watershed or something that's vitally important to the state, to a level of monitoring and maintenance mode. I mean, and then move on to another, make another focal area. I think that's something that we can do, because a lot of times we sit back, 10 feet with a shotgun and do, take a shot at a map, and we're doing all these little pellets, all these little treatments all spread out, and they do have an impact. But if you could, be an inch away with that shotgun and just blow a hole in that spot and get all of that work done in that one spot, and like, nothing is ever done, but like to that maintenance and monitoring level, and then move on to the next one and kind of do the same approach. I think that works well. I just don't know how we would get there at a state level. It's a lot easier when you're talking about one agency and we can kind of concentrate on certain areas, but with all the partners involved and at a state level, I don't know if we can get there. I don't know if that's the right path or not, but it seemed to work with that initiative pretty dang well. So, and I guess it's the random acts of restoration, right? Instead of doing them across, doing little bits of pieces here and there, maybe we concentrate on one area, get it done, and move on to the next. I don't know. It's just a thought.
Yeah, that's a good point. And going back to, like, we were kind of talking about WRI and Restore as models for how to do something more like that. And so I guess tying that back into the question of levers of influence, like if that is what this committee wants to target, and we were really diving into that for a while, and then it's kind of fallen off a little bit. And I think part of the reason it fell off for me is like, where does that go? And so like, can someone give me like a vision of what that would look like for this committee? Like, do we become kind of a subject matter committee around WRI and Restore, and we really dive deep and we bring in all these other partners to try and come up with something like that for the state? And then where would that go? Like, is that something that we bring the legislative committee into, and then we try to make legislative change? So I guess I do think, I mean, we have so much momentum on a lot of these relevant topics, and I think the question is just where does it go? Like, what is our role in getting to that model.
Yeah, because like WRI in Utah, I mean, BLM puts in like $8 to $12 million a year in that. I mean, that's a lot of money. And I don't know. I feel like it kind of levels the playing field as far as, you know, like Brett was talking about. There's this program and this program and this program, and you know, everybody's competing against everybody. Where if you had one program, one time frame, one thing, where everybody can put in their applications or what, you know, or treatment plans or whatever, however it gets worked out at one time, everybody. I don't know. I don't know if that's better than. I mean, it's definitely, I think, would be better than, but I don't know how fair, because then certain entities might be better at. I don't know. It's kind of how it is right now too, but at least it'd be one shop instead of kind of plan around multiple timeframes and multiple opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing is, yeah, I'm trying to like take, John, what you're saying and figure out like what the council would do with it.
Yeah.
So like RMRI, which was a collaboration between the U.S. Forest Service and the Wild Turkey Federation, sort of did this thing you're talking about where they picked 3 landscapes. It came with, I think, a tiny bit of money up front, but it didn't dictate that anyone fund these areas. COSWAP made a programmatic decision to fund those areas, but I think it would have to be legislatively mandated if the state, or I guess it could be an administrative recommendation, but I kind of have a feeling like if we wanted CWCB and Furworm and COSWAP to all fund certain areas, that would probably be a legislative change. And COSWAP has strategic focus areas like you're naming, John, and that is something that statute mandated in a way that happen. So thinking about levers of influence, I mean, I'm still hearing legislation and maybe recommendations to agencies. I don't know. It'd be interesting to hear from the State Forest Service. I mean, yeah, they've accepted legislative recommendation or administrative recommendations in the past. I think those could come back in a slightly different way. I think Director McCombs had encouraged them, and then because they seemed to be such a burden on like staff capacity, I think, and it took so long for them to be done, he ended up saying like, let's be careful with these, but I think we should talk to the council about bringing them back. But maybe it's not 3 a year that are all pointed to the exact same agency, where it's like the same person is kind of in charge of doing them all. So maybe there could be kind of more mindfulness. John, I mean, I'm really enjoying what you're saying, is like this enthusiasm about like what needs to be done in the state, of like what needs to be done is like the content, and then like how it's done, I think is like the lever question. Like maybe this committee has so many great ideas, but like how do those ideas get translated into action at the state level is the question.
I agree, but it's got to start somewhere, right? Like, I mean, where does that conversation need to take place, I guess, then? If it's not in this committee, is it the FHAC? Where is it, like, who brings the idea forward? Because I feel like we've talked about this for a couple of years now, and it's never gone anywhere but those conversations. So I don't know. It's never been talked about at a higher level than. And again, I don't know if it's the right answer or not. I'm just saying it just seems like, yeah.
I do think it relates. Oh, go ahead, Courtney.
Oh, I mean, okay. I was just going to say that's a good point. Like, instead of trying to think like 18 steps ahead, I mean, I think it is in some ways helpful to think a little bit about the levers of influence. But I hear what you're saying, John, is maybe we don't need to wait to understand like exactly how something will get to the finish line. If we like create something robust with buy-in and case studies from other places of it working really well, then we can't even imagine like who ends up like listening to the council and bringing this forward. So I would like to open the gates to say that sounds like a great idea also.
Yeah, I think for me, like there's something very tangible in front for me of what we talked about earlier of the Forest Resilience Planning Guide. Right, that's something this committee has done, and we talked about needing or sort of seeing a lot more opportunity for that for the agency leadership and funders to better align their resources with needs on the ground, which is kind of what John is saying of like, how do we get the agencies and funding entities to better align, whether that's one geographic area, but I think the Resilience Planning Guide points more to like specific activities that are under or overfunded, or like maybe activities are under or overfunded in certain areas of the state, right? And so, collaboration support is more funded in some areas of the state than others, and actual thinning, contractual funding is more than I think if we dig into some of those things, and we could add on like climate adaptation, where are systems more or less vulnerable to sort of climate stressors that are going to push them over the edge of resilient forests. If we start putting some of these things together, I think it leads more to Courtney of like, I don't know what the answer is at the end, but that could be pretty powerful coming from the council to say, you've done some analysis, we can bring in the forest tracker. This is where resources are currently going. This is where we think the needs are. And then figure it out from there, whether it's an administrative recommendation, legislation, like what needs to happen.
And I know, being on the firmware review committee, we get, we grade all of that stuff, and then there's a list, right? And it's, one, and then we only have a certain amount of funding, so we only fund one through whatever. But there's always a conversation, like there's a lot of front range, places that are a little bit better at getting their applications in. But does that mean that we should spend all of our money there, or should we go to some of these, I don't know how you want to say, underprivileged areas or whatever, that maybe not as good at writing a proposal or whatever. That conversation comes up every year. So
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, Corey, I don't know what the end game is, but I mean, like I said, we've been having conversations like this for a couple of years, and it's never gone further than a conversation. So maybe it means no one's interested, or maybe it means it hasn't gotten to the right person. But I know what I've seen in the last, since I've been in Colorado, is that if enough people start talking about it and get excited about an idea, it will happen. It's just a matter of getting to the right person at the right time, or whatever it may be, but it definitely can happen. So and again, I don't know if it's the solution, but it's definitely worth higher level conversations. So
yeah, I agree. I think it's taken a while to get there, but I see a very logical sequence of, we created like the 30-year vision for the council, very high level, do good things. The resilience guide is now sort of here's how you put that vision into action. And now, like, how do we coordinate and leverage resources to make that vision come to reality is sort of the next step. So it's taken a while to get there, but I think all the learning we've done on WRI and Restore and stuff, I feel like now we're actually in a position to potentially put that really to use sooner than later. And again, I don't know what the solution is, but I think to dig into it with some better understanding and some tools at our disposal to see what solutions could be.
I like that.
I
I
will-
like not limiting. Oh,
No, I don't want
I
to
think what I'm
Courtney,
hearing,
speak up for State Forest Service real quick and say that I know that a lot of the grant programs have specific funding requirements in them, like you've talked about, John, but I think also, like you said, John, there's ways to just encourage people to think outside the box a little bit. So, sorry, Courtney.
I'm just really appreciating what you're saying about like not limiting ourselves based on what we know or don't know right now at this stage. Like, let there be more conversation, let there be more investigation, let there be more partners, let there be more collaboration, let us use our tools, and then we'll see what comes out, as opposed to just being like, we're not sure what the avenue is right now. So I appreciate that broad forward thinking. I think part of me feels like discouraged. There's been like movement and then like breaks and then like movement and breaks. But I appreciate, I'm appreciating the energy and the way both of you all are laying it out, that there's so much potential right here. And I'm thinking about the way like the conversation with work like got the right amount of momentum. And now there's all these people talking about the economy, and it's in like every meeting, and you know, all the summits are, you know, like at all these different meetings, people are talking about these things because it got big enough of a voice. So I see what you're saying, John, also about the momentum catching.
Mm-hmm. But I feel like that's a perfect example. Work is got lots of people excited about, I don't know that the state ballot initiative proposal that's potentially coming out, came straight out of work, but came out of that same momentum and excitement, right? But all of that excitement and momentum is now like, oh, if we actually get money, how do we make sure that it's spent wisely? And I feel like that's where we're in a position to help with that, right? One of the things you were saying, John.
And I don't know about this for this committee, but one thing I've seen in the BLM is that we're really good at doing a project or doing a treatment and then moving on to the next one, right? But we're not very, I mean, we do monitoring, but we don't really do effectiveness monitoring. Like, did it actually do what we said it was going to do? And I feel like that, and again, I don't know if it's right for this committee or whatever, but we, like you said, we have the tools, like we have where we did all the treatments. Now, is there a piece that we could get to, like, did it actually do what we were hoping it could do? That could then, go into adaptive management where, well, we tried this on here last time and it didn't work, so let's do this instead or something like that. That's a totally different conversation than we were just having, but I just thought I'd bring it up that I feel like across the state, we do good at getting the work done, or at least trying to get the work done. It's just, we never know if we're moving the needle, I guess, as much as we don't know how much we're moving the needle. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to tie back into the what were we calling them? The concepts that we worked on and then put forward to the Full Forest Health Council. There was like the revolving loan fund one, and we have some of those that I'm feeling a little bit lost as to where those go next. Like if those are with the council now and that's that, or if this committee has something to do with them. And what levers of influence we have to move any of those forward, if at all.
Well, I think that most of like the work of the council happens in committees. So like naming the revolving loan fund to the council, I don't think is enough for the council. Like we could have another discussion at another meeting about it for sure. But I think kind of like John and Brett were saying about the guide and the 30-year vision and how those work together. I almost wonder if like the revolving loan fund is a part of the same conversation with the Utah's okay, I just lost it. WRI in terms of the restore model, or maybe those are different things. I'm not sure.
I mean, they all kind of revolve around the topic of funding and bigger funding and more sustainable funding and that sort of theme.
And I feel like the revolving loan fund, I feel like that's a specific tool. Whereas before, Courtney, you were saying, I like the, let's explore what the needs are and how the resilience planning guide can serve as a framework for like identifying those needs. And the forest tracker where work is already happening, like use those tools and not already have a preconceived notion of we want to direct a loan fund. That might be where we end up, but I feel like that's the next step.
I feel like we need someone to come on from WRI and talk to us about how the inner workings work. Like, because from what I know, and I'm not no, you know, BLM puts a lot of money in, counties put money in, state puts money in, but how does that affect where those treatments are placed? Because I mean, if like for say Chaffee County puts in $500,000, obviously they're going to want that to happen in Chaffee County. So how does that? How do they do that? Like how do they get to that point where you have all these different characters putting in money and everybody is happy at the end of the day when they prioritize and fund things? Because right now I'm just like everybody puts money into a pool and somehow they prioritize, pick projects, and they go out and do them. But if we could explain, in that conversation about maybe this is the direction we want to go, more about how that actually works, might be helpful.
We had a presentation.
Yeah, but it was like a
point.
30,000 foot level thing. It didn't get into the inner workings and how they pick and all, like. And I don't know if that's needed or not. I'm just saying if we're going to talk about this, we should probably know how that works financially, because that's going to be a big concern for a lot of people and how they make the decision on whether to have further conversations on it or to just not even pay attention. So I don't know.
Right. And I guess if that's the direction we want to go, this committee would be the ones to go that deep. Because we've had conversations before where it's like, how deep does this committee go versus kind of making the recommendations for the next people. Maybe we should make these meetings longer because we only have 2 minutes left, and I know I have a meeting right at 1. Maybe we should just plan to continue kind of the same. Courtney and I can compile some thoughts a little bit, and then we can maybe continue next month with this conversation.
I think that sounds good. Yeah, I think what I heard, maybe I'll just reflect this, maybe see if this is my bias or what you all think too. Continue building on the resilience planning guide and sort of try and tie that in with some of our past conversations on leveraging resources. And we focused more on the financial resources, but there's also a lot of technical resources to leverage. And one example is I shared at the very beginning, sort of how we ended up engaging in Grand Junction area, right? That doesn't often we don't engage a lot. The science and monitoring sort of doesn't reach there a lot because they're farther from universities. So I think there's a lot of directions we could go, but kind of doing that. And then I don't want the climate adaptation piece to get dropped off either.
Well, thank you for that summary. I was typing. That's why I'm a little delayed in all of my talking. So yeah, I like this idea, tying in these new tools that we've created back into some of our past conversations and using that to figure out where our future is. So it is 1 o'clock. We will go ahead and adjourn, and keep an eye on your email. Maybe we'll send a couple of between meetings thoughts or homework or something. So. All right. Well, it was great talking to you all. Thanks for the good insights. I always appreciate it. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks
you.
all.